2025 Lower Merion Board of Commissioners Capital Improvement Plan Workshop. Before we start, please silence your cell phones. Amplifying equipment is available for those having difficulty hearing during the meeting, and the room is also equipped with telecoil technology. And because this is a workshop of the board, comments will not be taken from the public this evening. However, you can certainly reach out to your commissioners separately. Before we move, I kick things over to our finance chair, Commissioner Zelov. I just want to acknowledge that this has been a really difficult week for many in the township. Over 900 households lost power, and the roads were obstructed in many places because of the storm that we had, and also the heat wave complicated matters really greatly. So I know that it's been difficult, and I want to extend my sympathies to those that were affected with loss of power and trees on their houses and things like that. And I, in particular, want to acknowledge the tremendous efforts of township staff in making things safe and cleaned up again and getting things back to normal. In particular, the work of Township Manager McNeely, Township Assistant Manager Ford, Director of Public Works Paul McElhaney, and your staff, and Superintendent Block, and the work of the LMPD for making, we were able to get out of this situation without a single injury, serious injury, which is just tremendous and the most important thing. So thank you all for your work. I know it's still ongoing. I know that there were a lot of factors that made it really difficult, and I appreciate all of your work. And with that, I'll kick things over to Commissioner Zelov.
Thank you very much, Vice President Kramer. And just to add very briefly to what you said, I believe there were 9,000 outages in this township. And not only did the staff do all that you've said, but Public Works had one less day last week to collect refuse and recycling. And that was an impact on them and our community, on top of the storm that was under-predicted in terms of its impact here. And so, and you all know that we will hear a lot from our Public Works Director tonight, who spent the weekend not preparing for this, but opening roads. So we're grateful for his dedication.
Yes, that's why he has bags under his eyes.
Tonight is part of our budget cycle, and it's really the beginning of the 2026 budget process. Here we are 6 months away from 2026, but in a public workshop, we're going to talk about the capital budget. At the end of the summer, on September 3rd, we're going to do the same thing for the operating budget. And then we're going to get from our management team, who will have spent much time between now and end of October, on a capital improvement plan that they will present to us and an operating budget that they will present to us. But our input tonight, our input in September, and our input in these next 4 months is a key part of the process. Not only is the public, of course, is welcome, but we aren't taking public comment. We are not voting. This is a workshop. Tonight we're talking primarily about 2026 for the capital budget, but as you all know, we have a plan that goes 5 years beyond that. And so we look at a 6-year window every year on capital spending. And I am of the view that we are far better than most municipalities and many counties in how we plan our capital budget. Because capital spending is challenging. It takes a lot of money, but it's how we maintain the assets in this township. And so we take it seriously and we plan. We don't do it ad hoc, we plan. And this is part of the planning process. As you all know, we have an aggressive capital plan, capital budget for 2025, and an aggressive plan coming in 2026. We've been beneficiaries of significant federal money. That's got to be spent by the end of next year, and we've been working hard for a number of years on that timeline. We've got a $55 million capital budget that's before us. For this workshop tonight, it's not by any means a firm number, but that's where we're starting tonight. That includes, of course, money from other sources, as well as money from Lower Merion Township taxpayers. And it's some 140 projects if you include all the projects listed in the supplemental sheets, including all the projects in the traffic network evaluation. In number 4236, there's 25 projects alone in that category in our capital budget. There's nothing new in here, and that's because, and Ernie put that in his memo to us, and that's because we have so much that's in process in 25 and going into 26, and we're going to hear about that in a moment. Our goal tonight, I always like to say, is to finish no later than 9 o'clock, but it's already been suggested to me that we can do better than that, and I'm all in favor of that. So with that, I will ask our township manager to provide his introduction, and even though I may have stolen some of his thunder.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, you've said half of what I was going to say already, but no. Indeed, as you said, this kicks off the CIP development process for the township. Staff's been working on this particular piece of the budget, the capital program, for the last several months, and will continue to do so right through to when we deliver an actual draft budget to you in November. Workshop here, what we tend to do is first we update you on the status of the 25 to 2030 CIP plan, the current one we're working on. And Director McElhaney will do that when we give him his turn. And then remember, I always like to remind that it's only the first year of the CIP, so 2026 is the only year that's an actual budget. The rest of it, the other 5 years, Commissioner Zellob mentioned, is a plan. And the further you get out into that plan, the less accurate the numbers really become, because the further you get out, we just can't budget accurately that far out. We're not asking you to make any decisions here this evening, but we are looking for any kind of direction from the board. Typically at the workshop, we ask several questions, and we usually have a list of new projects we ask you to address. Those are typically called B projects, projects that we might have recommended that they should go in, and the commissioners need to decide whether they will or not. We don't have any of those this year. The theme to staff was we have so much to finish coming out of the 2025 CIP budget, and so much of that bleeding over into 2026. We don't have new projects before you. So all we're really asking you tonight is, did we miss anything that is not included, that you wanted included? Is there anything that is in the CIP, particularly the 2026 CIP budget, that you don't want to proceed with in 2026? Just about everything we have in here is a project that has either been in or has been in for multiple years in some cases. There's been pressure to make sure that we spend the $25.5 million of ARP funds that we receive from the federal government. And I'm glad to be able to tell you that by the end of this year, we'll have mostly met that requirement. We have until the end of December 2026 to spend all the ARP funds, but we've got these big projects going. We've got a lot of projects going, and of course, we're spending ARP dollars first before we spend township tax dollars. You'll see now that we're expecting that out of a draft right now that looks like a $50.7 million or better CIP budget for 2025, $20.75 million of it is dollars that we call reappropriated. They're dollars we won't be able to we don't think we can spend in 2025 and will fold over into 2026. Trying to be realistic, even when we show you the projected cash flow for 2026 CIP, we're telling you that we think maybe we'll get 80% of that done. And that may be overly optimistic because we still have a very large slate of projects to finish. And some projects we just didn't get going this year. It's not only because staff or consultants don't have time, but there are permits that have to be acquired. There's permissions from PennDOT that are needed. So there's a variety of reasons why some projects just don't move forward as fast as perhaps we had hoped. Again, the theme we have gone with to staff, and they listened, is we don't have the capacity to add much more to this CIP. We need to finish what we already have going. So 2026 draft includes a lot of projects that have been started and many that also still need design, bidding, construction started. And that requires surveys, that requires engineering design, bid specifications, permits, bid awards, contract development, and issuance. That's all the process that has to happen to get these kind of capital projects going, and that takes time. So we'll spend a little more time probably tonight in the CIP workshop, having Director McElhaney talk about where's the current list of projects and what's going on. And he will try and focus on the big ones. We're not going to go through the entire 100 and some list of CIP projects, but we do want to give you a good update on where current projects are. At the end of the evening, hopefully you've given us whatever direction you want and anything additional you want us to research between now and introducing a CIP budget in November, and we can proceed. We can go to Director McElhaney if that's all right with you.
Yeah, number 2 on the agenda is project status of 2025 projects. And that's a combination of the first page is projects that have been completed, and then through page 15, all the projects that are in process. Paul is going to primarily focus on the bigger projects, and please, in the course of his presentation, if you have questions, by all means, ask. So with that, Paul, take it away.
Well, you said you wanted to keep it short, so that's my presentation for this evening. Exactly. All kidding aside, a lot of last year was spent on design of those projects that had the ARP funds associated with them so that we would be able to put those projects through the process that the manager has explained of the bids, the specs, the contract documents and all that. The concentration was getting those projects ready to go. The beginning of this year, the focus has been getting those projects out of the ground, started, and so forth. Year to date, we've completed a lot of smaller projects, but a lot of the focus, again, this year was on the ARP-funded projects, design, and larger projects. This year so far, under our MS4, which has ARP money associated with it, but has been stymied some because of waiting for permitting from DEP. We had, I think, 5 or 6 projects slated in 2025 for PRP projects. We've completed so far the West Mill Creek Park stream bank restoration, the Ashbridge Park stream bank restoration, and next week we should be finishing the Dove Lake restoration. We're down to some punch lists and some other items on the Dove Lake restoration. And we did have a pre-con yesterday with the contractor to start what we call the Kegel Centennial Road project, to look at how we could start, where we can enter the property and that kind of stuff. So we are well underway. We have most of our permitting in place, and we will be doing the majority of them throughout the course of this year. One of those large projects is the Mill Creek one that is down by the Barker's Mill. We have a road stabilization, a large road stabilization project there in combination with the stream bank restoration. We are currently trying to do that in conjunction with the developer to shorten the traffic patterns so that the delays and so forth are minimized. They are currently waiting on DEP also. So that project, we're hoping will go later this summer. And then we will have completed most, if not all, of our spending on ARP funding for our MS4 PRP projects. One of the other big projects that we completed that I would ask the question, does anybody know where Bliss Street is? Bliss Street. So Bliss Street is, I use that whenever I get a new staff member. I ask them, tell me where Bliss Street is. So it's this tiny little section of street that is, you actually have to go through Conshohocken to get to. It's down behind what was the Four Falls, tiny little road. But we had to bring that back up to standards because we are, in several months, we will be bringing before you paperwork to vacate it so that we no longer have the responsibility of cleaning it when illegal dumping occurs and those type of things. There's no need for us to have it. We will be vacating it, but we had to make repairs so that we could vacate it. But that's your trivia question for tonight, is find Bliss Street. Every new employee fails. So, but that's a rather large project that we had to work with Norfolk Southern, which caused delays there to get that. It cost us several months of time working through details with Norfolk Southern and right of entry and so forth. Large project that had grant money associated with it and was the East Levering Mills sidewalk over in Bala Cynwyd. That started several commissioners ago. And finally, there's some punch list items, but it is substantially complete. But that was a project that through town meetings and so forth took several years to get everybody in line and agreeable as to what we could get agreeable. But that has been completed. Donna over in Parks and Rec, she's been busy. I don't know how she's faring and how she's staying sane, because so far this year she has completed the new pickleball court up in Ashbridge. That is done with its sound deadening and all the fun stuff. The South Ardmore Park playground has been redone. The St. Paul's Tot Lot playground has been replaced. And my understanding is that in the next week or so, she'll be done the Gladwin playground also. So Donna's a whirlwind of stuff going on. But with that, Donna has also had several other projects she's been working on, and one that it's not quite done yet, but will be done before you adopt the CIP, is the Ashbridge House project. So Donna's had that, and she's had to deal with the historic well up there, and she's smirking back there, having fun doing this to her. She will have completed the Norfolk Southern Tunnel, the Kimwood Trail extension, the section that goes into Philadelphia, and the Palm will be completed over here in Ardmore. So I don't know when Donna has time to go home, but the Palm is one of the largest projects we're undertaking, but at the same time, she is also working on the new community center. So this year has been the year of Donna for large projects and getting done. So my hat's off to her, because there are projects that I only have to get questions that are real big questions, like should we do this or should we do that? But Donna handles them all herself, so it's great. So we've done many projects like that in the way of large projects. We continue to do smaller projects like the Bryn Mawr Community Center. Many of our facilities improvements have been done this year. But for the most part, this year has been the large projects of getting ARP funds spent. And Donna can spend. I'm not giving her my credit card, that's for sure. And we've known each other too long, so. But that's the majority of our large projects that have been done this year. We will have many more that will be getting completed this year, but as the manager has said, and as Commissioner Zoloff has said, there is a slew of projects for 2026 that we are currently under design or out to bid for contracts and so forth that will be coming into, that will take place in 2026. And it is an extremely busy schedule for us, so.
Okay, Paul, thank you. Does that cover all of the, do you want to cover the status? Is that your report on the status of all the projects? that are
That's
underway?
pretty, the largest. If you have specific ones, I can give you,
Okay, so if any
updates.
commissioners have questions on any specific projects or on the list through page 15, I have a few. There's a number of Luddington Library projects, including concrete ramp repairs. Where is that?
It's in the back section towards the gas station. If you're looking at the building, it's to the left in the back. There's ramp repairs that are needed there. So that's been identified. It has not been bid yet.
Okay. You did report on Dove Lake. Okay. Do any commissioners have any questions on any of these projects? Commissioner Grimes?
Thank you. Paul, just one.
Sure.
Since you were kind enough to mention the Mill Creek stabilization. So my understanding is exactly what you said, that the developer is waiting for DEP approval of the sewer. But beyond that, I don't know that we have any commitment from the developer to start any work at any particular time. So given the condition of Mill Creek Road, are there plans to deal with that one way or another, even if the developer's not ready to move forward?
Yes, when I met, well, step back, we've had several meetings with the developer, who, when I first met with him, we talked about monies owed, and that was resolved. And then we talked about coordinating together, and he clearly sees the benefit of that, because some of our road closure would benefit his work and some of his would. So yes, we've had numerous conversations. I've got commitments from him, strong commitments to work with us. And I know I've met his contractors and everything and we've had meetings, even though they're not pre-construction meetings, we've held meetings to discuss how we would handle traffic and all that. That said, as I noted yesterday, I met with the Flyway company, who are doing our MS4 projects and who are the contractor for our road stabilization and the work there. And the conversation with them is, depending on DEP, and if it looks as though the developer is still having an issue with DEP, then what I would do is I would go forward, have a conversation with the manager and the assistant manager, and let them know that we were probably going to have to break not the agreement, but the schedule, and that the delays for traffic would be longer. I'm hoping not to do that, that the one-lane restrictions and all, trying to keep it as short as possible for the traveling public. But if it looks as though DEP is at a stalemate or a stop, then we'll have to make a decision. But right now, the discussions have been to work together hand in hand, because there's a mutual benefit for both parties.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm hopeful that'll happen. It's just, we don't control DEP's timing and all that, so.
No, we do not.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Same project. We finally received our permitting, and he still hasn't received his. Same stretch of land, so.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Other commissioners with questions on projects completed or underway?
I have a question.
Certainly, Commissioner Stevenson.
Chairman, thank you. Good to see you.
Glad you're with us, in the flesh.
Thank you. And this question it's about the fleet, a fleet question.
Sure.
And I've asked this before, and our fire chief, who's here, has an excellent vehicle. beautiful. I rode in it. And I look forward to riding again with you. Our police superintendent, when are we getting him a new car?
Your police superintendent actually has a new vehicle.
He does?
I've seen it, I've been in it. It is at the outfitters. Because if you remember, like, the show Star Trek or one of them, that command center, that's what's being put into his vehicle. So he is getting the same vehicle as the fire marshal, but he won't be running Uber like Jimmy does. But no, all kidding aside, it is, no, he is getting a new vehicle. It's up at 10-8 being outfitted. Just touching on fleet briefly, we have received many of our new police vehicles and all, and we use several outfitters, and everybody's behind. So you will start seeing vehicles coming online, but Andy does have a new truck. It is, I saw it 3 weeks ago. I was in it when it was received to make sure that it was up to what we had ordered.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other commissioners with questions or comments? Paul, picking up on what Commissioner Stevenson in regards to fleet and vehicles, we have a very unusual plan that 4 fire apparatus are scheduled for delivery in 2025. That's the expectation, that all 4 will be delivered this year?
That is the expectation. If you remember, several years ago, we put out the caution that we were ordering trucks and we were being told 28, 29. Fortunately for the fire companies, the delivery dates and delivery times have shortened, and we will be taking delivery of the trucks this year. I know that Mr. McCoy, Chief McCoy, has been out to some of the factories to look for punch lists and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's we've had the encumbrances against the CIP for these years, and they're just all coming due at the same time.
Can you tell us about road milling and paving? When is it going to start, and what is your projected time to completion?
So it actually was supposed to start 3 weeks ago, and we've had this little thing called rain that delayed the first week of it. So they started 2 weeks ago. We're up in the western end of the township, and we should hopefully be done before Labor Day. The goal is before Labor Day of this year. The weather has not been helpful. The storm that went through on Thursday, we had a road that was milled, and the flash rain, so forth, we had to end up putting down binder course because a lot of it got washed. So we had damage from the rain, and we also had 2 of the roads had trees down on them. So, but we are pushing forward, and the goal is by Labor Day.
Great. We can ask Donna, but I'll ask you, among the very big projects is Ashbridge House and the stream bank restoration at Ashbridge Park. Is that scheduled for completion this year?
Yep, stream bank restoration is done.
Okay.
That's one of the points that one of our MS4, and the house should be done in short order, and it will definitely be done before we approve the CIP. She had given me, I had spoken to her today, and she had given me a date exact, but I don't give you exact dates.
Okay. Okay, then seeing no other questions from commissioners, why don't we move on? We'll give Paul will give you a little break, and we'll ask our Chief Financial Officer to give us a brief explanation of the cash flow and financing for our capital projects for 2025 and 2026. It's on page 16 of your packet, and then on page 17 is the ARP allocation. Adam, I don't know if you're planning to touch on that, but why don't you explain then the capital projects fund cash flow projections? and glad you're with us even remotely.
Thank you, Commissioner Zelov, and good evening, Commissioners. Before you is the typical cash flow financing that we show for the CIP workshop, starting off with 2025, looking from June 1st through the rest of the year, and then rolling that into 2026. At the very top, we show the beginning balance of the capital projects fund. That is, if you recall, we issued debt in February this year and received that money at closing a month later in March of 25 million in proceeds. As of June 1st, we have just under 20 million remaining in those funds. In addition to those funds, we have utility contributions from Pico, Aqua, and the like for their disturbances to paving that get allocated to the paving and milling project, anticipated over 600,000 this year. Liquid fuels are those state funds we receive that we can use towards paving and milling, as well as some other operating costs. We had a little bit left over at the end of last year in that fund. So for those that have seen this cash flow and recall that number being about around 1 million a year, we did increase that due to just additional funds available at the end of 2024 at 1.2 million. And then the ARP contribution, that represents essentially what remains in ARP as of the beginning of this month, with the exception of $1 million that we anticipate being spent in 2026 for Ardmore House. That gives us a total funding stream of about 33 million across those sources, not including grants, which is backed out of these cash flow analyses. And then the projected spending. So in our discussions and conversations, we looked at what's being appropriated, what is actually already encumbered in those projects, and came out to this number. And much of that is going to be, again, the completion of Ashbridge House, several of those large fire apparatus that are finally going to be delivered this year, and a spend down of much of those stormwater projects. One of those projects that Paul had mentioned earlier, just to reiterate how these things can sometimes lag. The contract was awarded in 2023, and we saw the first payment application for it just this past month, which I'll bring back in a moment here on the delays we sometimes see. But the almost 28 million in projected spending through the rest of the year really just reflects those awarded contracts we already have under our belt, minus a few reappropriations into next year. That would end 2025 at about 5 million in bond proceeds available to roll into the next year. Okay. Going into 2026, starting point again is that 5 million based on the 2025 activity, additional utility contributions and use of liquid fuels, the remaining ARP monies for Ardmore House give us 7 million or nearly 8 million of sources from which to draw on, and the total A projects here of 34.6 million in your packet. Even when considering a projected spending of only 80%, comes out to a funding gap of nearly 20 million. That can be made up in several ways, noted in your packet. Most of these are small in nature. The big piece, of course, would be bond and debt issuance. I will point out to you that, I looked back at the 2023 CIP cash flow that was before you, and that number for the projected ending financing needs for 2024 was almost 16 million. We ended 2024 with 1 million in the red from the Capital Projects Fund, which was covered by a interfund borrowing from the general fund that was enacted with the reimbursement resolution as part of our bond ordinance. So that goes to some of the delays that we inherently see in some of these projects. So the cash flow gives you kind of the best case scenario if everything goes right and we're able to move swiftly on the awarded contracts and act upon all of the total A projects next year. That is the funding gap we would see. Really, what that is probably approximating is what we would be looking to borrow towards the end of 26 or more likely the beginning of 27, depending on the delays that we see or the prices that we see in some of these projects, or also potentially additional grant funding that may come in the next year or so. Just another note on debt, just to set our proxies. Before we borrowed this year, we had 78 million of debt outstanding at the beginning of the year. We added 24.1 million, and we'll be retiring a little over 8 million this year. So at year end 2025, we'll have a outstanding debt balance of about 94 million. Next year in 2026, we'll have nearly 9 million in additional principal pay down. So year in 2026, before any additional borrowing, we're at about 85 million in outstanding debt. Okay. I'll break here and for any questions you may have, and go on to the next spreadsheet if you have any questions about the ARP allocation spreadsheet as well.
Thanks, Adam. In your presentation, you also, unless I didn't hear it, you didn't identify the contingency for spending in 2025, where the ending balance, instead of being 5 million, could be 9.3 million.
Yes, that's correct. And so,
to 26.
yes.
And then the spend could be 80% in 2026. And that's
Correct.
That kind of thing is why, in that example you gave, the projected 16 million was actually 1 million in 2023. Right? And
Correct.
so,
Yes.
Right.
Whenever we look at these, we do have the contingency. 99.9% of the time, it's going to be the slower contingency that was paid down. So that difference is right there, 4 million. This difference is, another 7 or 8 million, which, combines to really drop this number down. Again, do we need 19 million in 2026? Probably not. What this probably accurately reflects is the size of borrowing we would need to carry those projects forward and act upon them into 2027, should, again, we don't hit 100% on the cylinders in the next 18 months.
Great, got it. Okay, commissioners with questions for Adam. Commissioner Gildekramer.
Thank you. I'm looking at the ARP contribution for 2026. Is that the remainder of all that we have from the ARP? And where does the ARP, the interest on the ARP money come into this? Or will there be an additional amount for interest that we could apply towards these capital expenditures?
There will be. So this number here, plus the million below, does reflect, as of January 1st, the ARP balance on our books, including all interest that has been accrued, minus the 1.4 million that was used in the budget towards the general fund. So as those monies accrue, they stay in the ARP fund. and are available to further contribute here. Obviously, we're aggressively spending it down, so that amount of interest will fall off monthly. But the general rule, and as the board appropriated or passed in its allocations, is that outside of any other action by the board, that interest money will go into the Palm and Community Center line item for the spend down.
So that would
Of the-
then reduce the amount that we would be spending in 2026. Do you have, I mean, do you have any estimate on what the interest is going to be for the duration?
I don't off the top of my head right now, but I can run some numbers and send those out to the board.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Other commissioners with questions or comments for Adam? Okay, Adam, you want to then go to the page 17 with the ARP allocation? Commissioner Kramer asked about that, so that's a good segue in.
Yeah, so the piece that doesn't show here, since this is the capital program, capital improvement workshop, are the non-capital pieces of ARP allocations to the vitality grants and other non-capital items that were appropriated by the board and spent down. So this shows the CIP projects that have been allocated. The left-hand side is just the allocation, what the board deemed in its deliberations, the total allocation across those projects, and then the spend down by year. This also doesn't at the moment reflect the interest earnings into Community Center and Palm, but I'll provide that information in the email. So the 2023 and 2024 expenditures by year are according to our books. So that gives you an idea how the ramp up of the use of the capital allocations, started in 23 and kicked into gear at the end of 2024. Just year to date in 2025 for the capital projects, we have spent $6 million. So this is anticipating another 10 to 11 million of spend in 2025. The 6 million that we've spent so far, and another 10.8 to draw down across all of the projects that have been allocated for ARP minus the Ardmore House expansion, which will be starting later this year, and we anticipate our $1 million share to be spent in 2026. Several of the projects have already used up all of their allocation. So as you can see, the Belmont Hills Community Center interior repairs in 23, the Levering Mill sidewalk in 2024, Ashbridge House, we recently ended its use of ARP. The several playground projects still have a bit of a balance, but are slowly drawing down. The ARP portion of the Norfolk Southern Tunnel was recently totally appropriated from the ARP perspective. So that's been drawn down across 24 and 2025. Stormwater, obviously the community center in Palm is the biggest piece that's remaining. Most of the money's left, and stormwater has several $100,000, which we anticipate with the movement of these MS4 projects will be used up in the next few months.
If there's no other questions for Adam, thank you very much, Adam. Then we'll go on to number 4 on our agenda, which is the CIP items that are continuing and projected to be in the CIP budget for 2026. We come back to our Director of Public Works, And, I mean, these are pages really 18 through 40 with the supplemental. A lot of good detail in the supplemental pages if you really want to know the specifics of where money's going in some of these larger categories, like the traffic network. As I said, there's 25 projects in there, and each one has to go through engineering, design, and bidding, and construction, and punch list, and even though some of them are small, it takes all of that process. Paul, how do you want to go through this? Do you want to hit the highlights in each category?
Let me give you some information, and then we can go to questions and so forth, but I'll try again. Hey, that's my presentation for tonight. Did that work?
You can try it,
Okay, I tried.
But you did well in the first part.
I tried. So, as the manager, as Mr. McNeely has stated earlier, there are no P projects this year. This is the first time since we created the ABC system that we actually have no B projects. You know, the message was clear, and no hesitation by my team or the engineering team about, hey, yes, we're great with no new projects. We have plenty on our plates to get done and get through. So there really is no new projects that we're bringing before you. There are projects that fall under existing CIP categories that, as Commissioner Zoloff said, if you look at the supplemental sheets, you will see certain projects. So if I could direct you to, say, page 29 of your documents, you will see our first one is our facilities improvements. So 4025 is a normal CIP category for us. It's a normal A category. But these projects that you see before you, Bryn Mawr Community Center porch, the Township Administration Building, water infiltration, remediation, Belmont Hills Community Center exterior painting, Phase 2. These are smaller projects that we need to keep all of our buildings in good repair, in good shape. So every year you will see that we allocate certain projects, certain funds to it. So that's you see what makes that up. If you go to 4237, you see bridge maintenance program. Again, this is the $940,000 is the replacement of the Knox Road Bridge over the west branch of the Indian River. Most people probably don't even realize that bridge is there, but it's a bridge that needs to be replaced. But just in general, you'll see under that $250,000 for bridge and culvert repairs, Phase 3. Every year, I receive 5 to 10 reports on bridges within the township and what we need to do to those bridges, what's immediate, what can staff do. So you can see there are, quote, projects within our normal A's, and these are how these get made up. Just to touch on some stuff, though, you will see that, one moment, please. Some of our categories have gone up from our not gone up, but again, if you look at 4404, our fire apparatus replacement, we've gotten 4 trucks coming this year, and then we have a truck that anticipated to be delivered next year in 2026 that was ordered in 2024. So we have that mixed with another truck that was ordered that will be delivered in 2026. So we're starting to have more expense in some of our categories because of supply chain delays, and we've budgeted for this money. Now it's finally coming due. So that's, you know, so you can see. One of the large ones that we have this year is under 4405. We usually have our fire company's facilities repairs. And on average, that's between $400,000 and $500,000 that we put forward to repairs at the various firehouses. You can see the first thing this year is the township's contribution to Union Fire Association with the renovation. That's a quite significant funding for this year that takes that normal CIP category up much more than it normally is. And then again, as we noted, there's a lot of spending in this year for projects like the Ardmore Community Center and the Palm, which have a lot of ARP funding with it, and that have driven up the total cost of the CIP, proposed CIP for next year. Again, another item is our affordable housing with our contribution to the Ardmore House and the new senior building there. A significant amount of funding there. Again, the fire apparatus policy or replacement is up this year because of the additional trucks that are finally coming in. We have the Kinwood Heritage Trail, the Phase 2, that has grant funding associated with it, but that is a significant funding source, or needs significant funding. Two projects that were in the CIP that I want to just make everybody aware of, because there's been some questions. You'll see one of our project numbers is 4099. That's the Waverly site. As many of you know, that's where we do our leaf composting. So we've had a issue there for numerous years. Every time it rains, we go completely underwater.
Say that again, Paul?
We go completely underwater. We take all of the water from the watershed above it, the expressway, and our operation goes completely underwater. And we've had ongoing issues with that. That, coupled with, some of you may be aware, we started a program several years ago to do our CDL training in-house. And that has afforded us, I think we're up to 8 or 9 employees that did not have CDLs who are now employed by us, who received their training here at the CDL, which, if you follow the world outside of us, getting CDL drivers is almost impossible, but with our program. So we have an individual who works for us who is licensed to train, but can, if with the right facility, he would be able to also approve and give licenses through the state. So in that money for Waverly, we've also have programmed in, we're the beginning of our drainage and also the creation of what we're calling, what is called an EVOC training course. And what that would do is that training facility would allow us to train our CDL drivers and license them appropriately at the completion of their testing. But also it would be used by the fire companies, by the police and so forth. The police could do their EVOC training there that they have to go and travel to go do. We would be able to offer that training facility here by creating the pad area. So the Waverly monies is the beginning of the design of the stormwater management and the EVOC training course, so that we could do our in-house training and the police could do their training there also. And that would also give us the ability to be a regional provider to the school districts, to the fire companies, to the other police departments in the area. So that's one of the items I just wanted to bring to your attention that's in here that has a significant cost associated with it. The other item that I received a question about was the Kegel complex. And we're starting to do we're redoing, not starting to do. When I first came here, my predecessor and the former assistant director of Public Works with Ed Plachenik started a needs study of the complex down at Kegel. I put it on a shelf because I wanted to better understand our needs, what we do, our operations. In the interim, we have had 2 small earthquakes that you may be aware of, just small. Well, we have significant cracking in the buildings. And every time we have an earthquake, we check the meters and we're still moving. We have walls that are hanging in the air. So we are looking at what we need to do down there. We also have the old transfer station itself, which several years ago we didn't bring forward, actually. We had scheduled to repoint the top of the building. We had budgeted in the CIP a little over $300,000. The bids came in at $1 million, at which point I spoke to Manager McNeely. We agreed that that was too much money and that we really should look at the building and what can we do, because it is a white elephant. So we have we're working to get RCAP grant monies to help fund this. Both the EVOC and the Kegel complex, both have been scheduled, but they both have significant cost with them. As I noted, the Kegel complex, we have structural issues, plus that complex over the years has been, well, we need to do this, let's put that there. We need to do this, let's put that there. We have the general public running through areas where we have operations going and all. So we pulled out the needs study, went through it again. There was no look to the future for alternate fuels, for EV, or anything of that nature. So the study that we had received, the draft, essentially has little, if any, use, and we've begun to look at what do we need to do to the complex to have us viable for the next 50 to 100 years at that site. So they're 2 of the big projects that I just wanted to make everybody aware of, that, you know, have significant price tags with them, and they affect the police, public works, and our operations, so that you are aware that, you know, we have a lot of projects in here and a lot of needs. Looking at, after Brandon and myself and the engineering team and my assistant director, after we sat down and went through our initial draft of the proposed CIP, and did a lot of moving of projects out and like identifying this definitely needs a grant and those type of things, and spending days on that, we came down to essentially we have our normal A projects, and then we tried to do our best to bring forward the desires of the boards, the preferences of the board. There's a lot of programs or projects such as sidewalks and all that have a significant cost associated with them, and they're also bringing this CIP number way up. So we're at a point where we've done our best, I think, to identify next year's projects, and we would be looking to the board to say, okay, we wish to move forward in that way, or we need to look at our priorities or some of our normal projects and defer them or slow them. So that's kind of where we're at. We think we've gotten to a level where we've done our best to bring forward our normal operations and the preferences of the board. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay,
I'll take
so-
any questions that you
So
may
time
have.
for commissioner questions. Paul, you spent a little time on the Waverly Site Improvements, Project 4099. I'm having a little bit of difficulty remembering the history of this, and you did tell us some of it. But can you explain why do we need our own location for commercial driver license testing? Where do drivers who need a CDL, where do they go today?
Where do they go? They have to sign up and try to get an appointment with the state. And try to get an appointment. It could be 3 to 6 months to get an appointment to take a test. So, as I noted, the benefit of this is that it would be used by the police department for their EVOC training that they have to go up above Oaks to take when they do their EVOC training. Other fire departments would be able to train their drivers on the fire trucks here, as would we with our drivers. School district would then be able to use it. That's why we're looking for RCAP money to help, shoulder the cost, some of the burden on it. And again, part of it is the monies is also for the beginning of the drainage down there. As I noted, we go underwater several times a year, and then after we remove all the leaf compost, we have to go through and regrade the site every year because it's literally a puddle of mud. So it's the beginning of the drainage and also the training facility. And the training facility is essentially a big asphalt pad with certain layouts of striping and so forth on it.
So also, is this different than the fire training facility that I
Yes.
believe is in Conshohocken?
The fire training
Which is
facility in
therefore it's closed?
Conshohocken is for entering live fires and so forth.
Yeah.
This is for the drivers of the trucks to, it mimics that they have to back into a limited space. They have to be able to go backwards through a slalom course with the trucks and with CDLs. The CDL drivers would have to do it with a dump truck with a trailer on the back, those type of things.
We also have fire training capability or location for fire training at the Kegel.
We do. And
So-
with
so
this.
You're talking primarily about a location for commercial driver training.
And also, yes, any truck, yes, bus, truck, those type of things. And then also the police for their evasive driving practice. For the course would be set up for them also.
Does management believe there's opportunities for grant
Yes.
funding for this, what is a $2.6 million project?
The 2.6, the majority of that is the drainage.
Okay.
The majority of it is the drainage, because we have to deal with leachite and stuff like, that the leaves give off when they're, and we cannot just directly drain the water to the Schuylkill. So,
And this is not the drainage issue that comes from on the other side of the expressway? You're talking, that's a different issue?
we catch that entire watershed
Okay.
down there, and it dumps on the expressway, and then it dumps on us.
Okay, commissioners with questions. Commissioner Epstein?
You said there's one staff member who can do the licensing for the CDL drivers?
Yes.
That seems kind of dicey. Is it possible to expand that to have some redundancy?
We have individuals that are working under him. The RFP from the state is about 780 pages.
Yeah.
Once we meet and we would have the facility, we would have, he would be able to issue your driver's license.
Right.
And we would then look to train other individuals within the organization. Didn't want to take the time and expense until we had the ability
Yeah.
to.
No, that would just be my.
Yeah, right now we're
Yeah.
functioning, and yes, redundancy.
That would be my suggestion moving forward.
No, Brandon
Yeah.
and Ernie will tell you, I definitely look at I tell Jesse all the time, like, you have to be ready when I walk out in front of a bus in front of the building, so.
I mean, I like to think of it if someone goes on a great vacation for a long time, but like, sure, also the bus.
Yeah, no, but.
It's a little darker, but it's
No,
okay.
no, but we try to have,
Yeah.
redundancy in everything we do. And he does have individuals that are, that are working with him, because we also have to provide these individuals with classroom. They take
Right.
modules and all. And actually, he was in my office today, and he said, could we look at changing someone's job classification or hiring someone? I said, well, let's not talk about hiring anybody, maybe.
Right.
But yeah, he was asking today, and I said, that'll be a year away or 2 years away. So it's been
great.
discussed.
Okay. Other commissioners with questions on all the projects, basically in the balance of the packet, right?
Yes,
All the way through the traffic
calming.
network and the
Network
supplemental and all that's in these, all that's listed for 2026. Commissioner Kramer, Gilda Kramer.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about a couple of items that don't appear in the CIP that were priority projects in the CIPs going back as far as I have, which was the one adopted in December 18th, 2019 for the year 2020 to 2025. And in that, there was an item that looked at both safety and economic development issues for the Marion Kinwood streetscape improvements. It was number 4024. And it was ultimately broken into two parts. The first part was completed. The second part has not been done. And that was to design and construct streetscape, traffic lane, and public parking lot improvements in the Marion Kinwood Business District, a business district that I think is suffering right now and has vacancies, among other things. In the 2020 CIP, 1.405 million was included, and that was to be done in the years 2020 and 2021. In the 2021 CIP, the work was spread out to be done up through and including 2023. In the 2023 CIP, and I've kept copies of all of these, so I have some of them here, but I couldn't carry them all. In the 2023 CIP, some of the work was supposed to be done in 2023, and the rest was pushed out to have engineering done in 2026, engineering and design, and then the construction for the second phase of this to be done in 2027. The 2024 CIP, it was changed to have the design to be done in 2025 and construction in 2026. And I would note also that in another item, the second item that has me significantly concerned is that all through most of these same years, there was a project to deal with a dangerous intersection at Montgomery, Bowman, and Brookway that was supposed to be addressed in 2023 and 2024. And that hasn't been addressed. That's been put off because of the Montgomery Avenue safety study. So in the proposed 2025 CIP, apparently what we received in June included both of these items. And then they were taken out in the final version at the end of last year. Supposedly because all of this was going to wait on the completion of the safety study. The safety study is being completed this year. And I believe that both of these items should go back into the CIP for 2026 design and the engineering and design, and for 2027 for the implementation. These improvements to the business district in my ward are long overdue and have been pushed off year after year after year, and it's time for them to get the priority attention that they deserve. The second thing that I wanted to mention just briefly, and I know that Ernie and I discussed this earlier today and we think it's premature, but I just want to flag the fact that there may be some additions later in the year because of a potential partnership with the JCC regarding the creation of an indoor pool and additional field space. And I don't want to, I think it's premature to have a discussion about it now because Ernie is still in discussions over this, but I just want to flag this as an issue that may come up later this year.
So I'll ask our township manager to respond to Commissioner Kramer's comments.
So sure, and Commissioner Kramer and I did talk about this a little bit, but we have a Montgomery Avenue safety improvement study going on, and it's going to look at the whole stretch of Montgomery Avenue. And we don't know what those improvements are actually going to bring in terms of recommendations and what the board will approve to do. So we don't know exactly what specifics to put in at this point. So what we have right now, we have the Montgomery Avenue corridor safety study and improvements, and it's on page 34. It's listed as VL 12, and you can see that it's got placeholder money out in 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. Those are just placeholder numbers out there because we don't know what that study is going to propose. But what we shouldn't do is Montgomery Avenue study gets finished and there may be 20 projects, there may be 30 projects, there may be 40 projects along the whole stretch. And we're not going to create a new CIP sheet for each one of those 20, 30, 40 projects. So what will happen is once we get the actual recommendations and the board approves those recommendations from the study, then we'll start plugging in actual numbers for projects as we prioritize from that study what things go first. And they'll go into that Montgomery Avenue corridor safety study and improvements over the years. I think that's a far better way to approach this than to try and pick and choose individual projects and intersections to put in along the way.
If I might respond to that briefly. This is not just safety in that stretch on my ward. Safety is a big issue. And I think that there are some very significant safety issues because Montgomery Avenue divides my ward in half. And there are hardly any street lights like you have in the Narberth Business District where people can cross. People are constantly jaywalking in unsafe ways. So I'm not going to deny that there are some significant safety issues that need to be addressed, I believe, on a priority basis. But there are also the streetscape, in making it nicer, making it a more welcoming and a nicer business district. The kinds of things that we've undertaken in Bryn Mawr, the kinds of things that we've undertaken in Ardmore to try to make this a more vibrant business district. And this is an economic development issue. And all of that has been left out of the CIP. Altogether, and that was part of this project. And the numbers that have been put in for the implementation of the safety plan are a fraction of what was in the CIP for improving this business district. And I think that while I understand that you have to look at the safety issues in one way, the streetscape improvements and the revitalizing this business district has to be back in the CIP. It should not be taken out.
Do you want to respond further to that?
I would just add again, the numbers out in the out years, it's a plan. Those numbers don't really mean anything since we don't know. They're placeholder numbers. And secondly, I don't know the outcome of the study yet, but I would bet that there will be streetscape improvements that will come with some of the safety improvements. We'll have recommendations, I would guess, for bulb outs, for expansion of sidewalk areas, for improvements to crosswalks in order to get people across Montgomery Avenue in a safe manner. So I think there'll be some streetscape improvements that will end up coming out of this study. But I understand what you're saying. If you're talking about a project that would be millions and millions of dollars to redo every sidewalk in the whole length of the Marion Kinwood Business District, that's a whole different project and a whole different question for the board to address.
Commissioner Churchill.
Thank you. When do you expect this Montgomery County study?
The Montgomery
Be
Avenue
finished.
Safety Study, they did the traffic counts here in the spring, and those are done. The engineers are now feeding that data into the various models that they will use to come up with recommendations for the whole stretch of Montgomery Avenue. I think we'll begin to see some draft recommendations by fall. Part of the process, of course, also, you know, and as a part of the grant, we've got the federal grant, is there has to be a public input process. So as we begin to get those recommendations from the study, then we'll have a public input process to go through, and then ultimately back to you, once you hear your public input and your engineer's input, then you'll begin to decide what you prioritize and what you want to emphasize out of the project.
So that will probably take place in 2026.
I suspect we'll be finishing it up sometime in 2026.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Rossman?
I've taken a tour of Kegel, as you know, and the garage, the whole facility. It was built how many years ago?
Well, it was built in phases. Original was back in the 40s, late 30s, early 40s. Last significant was in the 90s.
Right.
The last significant building was in the 90s.
Did
We've
you
had small-
project that we'll have to pull it down and rebuild with current standards and shoring up where earthquakes have taken their damage and their cracks and things like that? Is this something we should be planning for in the future? Is it something you've planned for, and do we get grants for that? I don't need specifics, but just a general idea. This is an idea we should have planted in the minds.
Well, that's, we've, like I said, it predates me, the original needs study. We wanted to get a better grasp on everything. The needs study the draft that we had has no relevance. Long-term, it may be a lot of reconfiguration at the facility. If you've ever been into our transfer station where the trash trucks are, where you dump trash, that is what I call a big white elephant. We barely utilize any space. We have the area that was the pit that's closed off to the public. We have the old incinerator still there, which has been getting kicked down the road to have its removal done. At some point, that needs to happen. As I noted, you know, they wanted $1 million to point the top 3 feet of that building. You know, and I'm not even sure how old the roof is on that building down there in that section. So we really need to look at our space use. Plus, if you go, you know, you've been there, Parks is in there, all of Public Works with the exception of sewer and electric shop. The police use the facility, and it's been, we need this area, we need that area. And it's been built just in hodgepodge, and it's a lot of misuse of space. And as I noted, we have the general public going through where we're running operations and, you know, those type of things. When we started discussing this several months ago, well, we started last year really discussing it, but several months ago when we were looking at from maybe a 500-foot picture, we clearly identified that the public needs to have an area, and that's it. Like we need to separate for safety. Because you were there, you saw how hectic and chaotic it can be down there, so.
So it's something we should think about as we go in the
Yes.
future. And not
Yes.
just have it quickly
And it's not
unloaded.
something that's going to happen overnight or in any way, but if we were to do it, as I said, we were already looking at RCAP grants. We received one small grant earlier this year to do some analysis. So long-term, it would be done in phases. I don't think it would be done in one, you know, huge swipe, because you couldn't, because we'd have to keep operations working, but it would have to be broken into phases and so forth.
So I'm just personally asking that we look ahead. This is not for 26, this would be
No.
from 27 on.
It'd probably
And-
be even,
and
it
probably-
may, yeah, what we're trying to do is get a general order of magnitude so we know how much grant funding we would need to find.
Okay, thank you.
We're trying to get our arms around it, so.
For all the items proposed in 2026, any other commissioners with questions or comments? I would point out to everyone that this is an ambitious plan for 2026, and in Ernie's memo, he does say that if the commissioners would like would prefer to reduce the size of the anticipated next debt issue or push additional planned CIP projects out to later years. The categories that we should consider would be park and trail improvements, emergency generator upgrades, Waverly site improvements, and the sidewalks improvement plan. I've asked Paul about the Waverly site improvements a moment ago. If anybody has any questions on the park and trail improvements, the emergency generator upgrades, or sidewalk improvement plan, now would be a good time to ask those questions. And I'll start it off. We didn't do the emergency generator upgrades in 2025. Are they, management has to tell us, are they candidates for delay in 2026 or not?
A lot of the ones that we delayed in 2025 were delayed in 2021, 2022, 2020. We are starting to experience issues. Last Thursday night storm, Kegel was out, Mill Creek Station was out, and the Waverly Pump Station was out. When this building experiences difficulties or power outages, the transfer changeover is taking longer and longer, and we have to have the generator company come in and go through the generator and do a reset whenever we have a power outage here. So we're pushing them, and we are running into problems. So, I mean, we can do so, but we are going to have increased cost and questionable dependability, so.
Got it. Okay, I understand. You want to add to
I
that?
just want to say that, to be clear, I wasn't recommending those for any kind of deferral. I was just pointing out the large dollar categories.
Fair enough.
That are in the 26 CIP.
Okay,
Ernie definitely wants this generator replaced in this building.
okay. Good. Well, I see this is, the commissioners have some questions. Vice President Kramer.
Thank you. Is this also maybe a very, very polite way of saying, pretty please take a little bit off of our plates for next year if you can? Because if it is, we should listen to that, right? And do you feel maxed out in terms of what our plan is for 2026?
I mean, it's very aggressive. The only, it is very aggressive. We're utilizing numerous people to be able to continue and so forth. That's why we were happy that there were no more additional projects. We see it's aggressive, but with the delays from DEP and things like that, that does eliminate and free up time and so forth. So, our concern, or my concern more, was the actual spend. I've always been, if this is what's on my plate, I will find a way to do it.
Okay.
So, but don't drown us.
We're already admitting we won't get $54.8 million
No.
worth of spend done next year.
Yeah.
While the CIP will total to that, we're showing you a cash flow that is probably overly optimistic at 80% getting done. We'll probably go under that.
Yeah.
Our only way would be to give it to Donna and tell her spend.
Right.
It's too late because she left.
She left.
She's out spending
She was
money
smart.
again.
She was smart. So, because I'm thinking about, well, it sounds like, emergency generators, that's not something you want to defer if you can avoid it. Waverly site improvements, we already discussed. Park and trail improvements and sidewalk improvements. Too bad, Donna, maybe she left at just the right time so that she didn't have to answer these questions about park and trail improvements. But it would be helpful to have, for us, maybe to have like a handy-dandy list of those in categories, like the park and trail improvements and the sidewalk improvements, and or maybe you can even list them out off the top of your head. I don't want to put you on the spot, but for us to be able to think about, and this can come later, you can send this to us after, so that we can just start to think about if there's anything that's negotiable on either of those lists, it would be helpful to have them.
Well,
kind of
with
in a list
trails, you
form.
have like the Writers Ferry Trail, the Barthmith Trailhead, those type of projects, the Conley the Conley Spur switchback, those type of things. There's a lot of money projected on those. The question is the board wish to, spread them out or continue at the pace that we're going? As to the sidewalks, again, we've had a survey done of numerous sidewalks, and we have preliminary plans for several of them. The thing with the sidewalks is realistically understanding that we're going to be going through a longer than expected public process, I think. I think that was shown through our East Levering Mill project, that it's not going to be an overnight to get the sidewalks done. But, if the board says that, say the decision was to slow the sidewalks, then what we would do is we would look at the ones we have already, that we already have surveyed, and like Clothier Road, Morris, Remington, those type of things, and say, okay, which is your priority? So that we could let the other ones, they're on the shelf, they'll be next, that type of. Now, I do know that at some point, the ad hoc sidewalk committee and Ernie, Brandon, myself will be, and Joe Mastrano will be sitting down with the commissioners that are on that committee to try to get some direction as to what our next steps will be and kind of at what pace we're going to, try to bid and perform these projects. Because as I said, with each one, there's going to be public meetings, there's going to be a lot of work, especially if there's right-of-way acquisitions and those type of things that need to occur. So what may seem as a quick project may be take much longer just to get through the processes that we can then put it out to bid.
Okay. So when would you want to know, when would be the latest that you would want to know if we wanted to defer on some of the parks and trail improvements or the sidewalks?
Well, as the manager has said.
I think you can certainly decide that when we deliver a CIP booklet to you in November. And as we begin to hold our meetings and our hearings on the budget, you can certainly at that point say, back this one off for a while.
And in the interim, we can get a list together in groups so that for your consideration and review.
Great, thank you.
Okay, who's next? Commissioner Gafford.
So building a little bit on what Vice President Kramer was talking about, the implications of leaving them on and knowing that that it's very ambitious and we're probably not gonna get to them versus taking them off. How does that impact what's actually getting done and what's not getting done?
Well, with the projects on the list, if we say, the Mill Creek project, we were waiting on DEP. So then what we will do is take another project within that MS4 category that's in there, and we'll then start working more, aggressively on that. We left the smaller one for later, so now we'll start doing the work on the smaller one. It gives us the options and the ability to pull other projects in, and we do sit down and have, like, the 4236, we sit down about once every 6 weeks and discuss which projects either have grant money or have a bigger need and and that's what we do with the CIP. So even though we have the 2025 CIP, there is an internal discussion as to what needs to go first, second,
Sure.
those type of things. And that's what it would do is if you take things off, it just means there'd be, less pressure and less to draw from if we run into delays or contract issues and so forth. As was noted earlier, the contract for Flyway was awarded in 2023.
Yeah.
And we just did the first pay app about a month ago.
Yeah.
So
So it sounds like there's not much of an advantage to taking, I don't think we're gonna spend $50 million on CIP projects in 2026. But taking them off and dropping that number to 51 or 48 or whatever it might be isn't really gonna it's actually gonna take away some of your flexibility. It helps set a priority from us, but it doesn't, I don't know how much of an impact it has. And a question for you, Ernie, is if we say we're leaving everything on here versus we're gonna take off $7 million of projects. And let me take a step back. Every project on here is a worthwhile project. I don't think anything's not worthwhile, but we have to prioritize within that list. So if we leave everything on versus taking off 10% of projects or 6% of projects, does that change how we're gonna go out and try to raise money from the market, to pay for it?
Not really, Commissioner. You're right. It's on the list. If you push it out to a future year, maybe we're not working on it as promptly as we might have if it's in the 26 versus 27.
Yeah.
But it's still there. I mean, sidewalks, Paul, a good example was Paul brought up sidewalks. We have a whole list of sidewalks. You told us to budget $14 million over 8 years and to do that list of sidewalks. And so we're working on the survey data and the design for the priority ones you kind of focused on. And yeah, if we get hung up on one, we can back off to another. So we do lose some flexibility, but really what's going to press us in terms of how much debt we need to issue really is how much we get done and how much we're ready to get done and spend in a given year and where our cash balance is.
So even if we say, of the 50-something million of projects, there's 33, I forget what are now, 33 of township projects. If really what's more determinative is if we say we want to raise $20 million, from the market, that's more limiting where our priorities are within that than taking projects off here or adding projects on here. I mean, I know we're all have had frustration of projects that have been in the budget, not in the plan. I know the sidewalks on County Line, they're in the plan, and it's fine. It happens, right? That's how this CIP works, is that these projects sometimes get deferred. So to me, it almost seems like at this point, these are all A priority projects. We leave them in here regardless of knowing that it's not going to happen. And really the discussion comes around when we raise the money and see how much we're going to raise. That's, to me, the bigger discussion on, where we push it. So, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Woodring, you had your hand up earlier?
Yeah, just a few weeks ago, we voted on grant funding for multimodal, for two of the largest sidewalk projects. Mm-hmm. Do we know if we're going to hear back about that before November?
No. The answer is no. The state operates on their own clock. If I were to guesstimate, we'd probably hear next spring, so spring of '26, okay. Because the deadline is we came to you in advance of the deadline. Deadline ends next month, so chances are spring 2026 at the earliest.
Okay. But grants can certainly affect what we bring back to you in the fall, depending upon what we hear and when we hear it. Tomorrow, Jesse and Public Works will be putting in the SS4A grant that we've talked about, and you authorized us to submit for more than $20 million worth of grant funds that could go to a whole variety of safety projects and intersection projects and improvement projects. So, yeah, things could change depending upon what we hear in terms of grant applications that we put in.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bernheim.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Zell. Paul, let me sort of digest a little bit what's going on here, because it's not different in some degree of things that we've heard year after year after year, other than starting from the point that this is about as aggressive and as expensive of any CIP we've looked at. I bet you would agree with me, at least since your tenure, which goes on. And so then we have this dialogue taking place here where it's a little chicken and egg type of dialogue saying, all right, what comes first? Our set of priorities, you tell us what you can realistically do, and there's the balance of that. And equally is the balance, what are we going to pay for, and what do we have to go out to the market? What can we tolerate doing there? So I set up this yin and yang for a reason. As we go through this process, here we are, in June, and as you know, we've got a couple other discussions, forthcoming. We need your help, all right? We really need for you to be able to be realistic and say, all right, here's where we, our manpower or what we'd be overwhelmed, and our recommendations would be, you may want to consider putting X, Y, or Z off, because that assistance is necessary. Because quickly, you all can get overwhelmed. We learned that within the past couple days, which is an aside, an amazing job that your group did in clearing streets and everything, but there's only so much manpower and so much that we can do at any one time. So I ramble a little bit with the hope that the takeaway is, as you go through this in the next stage, is that you say, all right, this may be too much, and not hesitate to bring that back to us so that we can then, make those other policy decisions going forward, but we really need your expertise to assist us.
Well, Brandon has been numerous meetings with me where I've told the team, I don't care, we need to get it done. And
Paul, can you speak up?
I don't care, you need to get it done. We need to, this is our charge and this is what we need to do. And you need to bring whatever tools you need to do it with. So, it is aggressive, but as history has shown, there are those projects that get delayed for numerous reasons and move. It's just that what we're seeing is a very aggressive. We're seeing an increase in just our general cost for our opening the doors. And then we have some board preferences projects with like the sidewalks and all, where we've allocated a lot of money to it. So our CIP number has grown significantly. And if we delay it this year, we're just moving the number down the road, and without knowing what may also come in that needs attention. So there's really no right answer. It's hard.
We all understand there's an element of, it's not so much guesswork as it is but trying to foresee the future and what we can and can't do. But there's also an element of realism, and that's the part where I'm saying, don't be hesitant to come back to us and say, all right, it's unrealistic to think we're going to be able to do whatever it is we're going to be able to do, so that we can plan. So, thank you.
Understood. Just make sure it's not his ward. His ward? We don't do anything.
All right, commissioners who have not yet had any opportunity to comment? Okay, so we can keep going to, if commissioners want to comment again. No, I see your hand is up, so I'm going to comment, Commissioner Kramer, a second time, and then we'll go back around if anybody wants to comment. So I just want to clarify a number of things that have been said and express my view on some of them. A moment ago, our manager threw out $14 million for over 8 years for sidewalks. The actual number is $8 million over 5 years are in the capital budget.
8 million over 5 years for 14 priorities, yeah.
14 priority sidewalks. This is in the category of brand-new sidewalks. So now I'm going to tie that into this discussion. So for consideration by management and my colleagues is, given the difficulties that you've told us tonight and previously, maybe we take that and spread it over 5 years, because right now it's spread over 4 years. If I look at the numbers in what's before us, keep that 5-year time frame. It's because it seems unrealistic that you're going to be able to achieve the 2.1 million in 2026 with all the difficulties that you've identified. So it goes back to, if this all ties into, is it really decided by how much debt we want to incur? That's a way to look at this. But it's also about realistic expectations for ourselves and for our community. And it's hard for us as commissioners with 140 projects and 55 million in spending to keep track of all of this. We can't do it. And so when we're asked questions, we go to the CIP, or we ask you. And so, but we can't always ask you when we're in civic meetings and we get asked questions. And so I guess I would suggest that we want to try to make this more realistic, and so that it's a roadmap that we can use and refer our community to. And so I think that should be a component of how we lay out this capital plan, budget, and 5 years of planning. So I would offer up the sidewalk installations as one for consideration to spread out, to take it out another year. I also want to comment on Commissioner Kramer's earlier comments about the Marion Business District and streetscape. Streetscape, in my view, has to include all of our business districts. There is no Bryn Mawr streetscape, Commissioner Kramer, that's been paid for by the township in my time as commissioner. And if there's streetscape in Ardmore, I believe it's been paid for by the Ardmore Initiative, the Business Improvement District. Marion doesn't have a Business Improvement District, and neither does Bryn Mawr. And so I think any streetscape, which is separate from safety, has to be looked at across all business districts. And that makes it a lot bigger and a lot more expensive, but that's the fairer way to do it. Let me also comment, since Commissioner Kramer, you've a couple of times said an indoor pool. If we're going to talk about that, I think we need to have some information about demand. In my view, demand is completely unknown. And then I also want to say, because I've had this conversation with people in other school districts, we have a relatively new Lower Marion High School with a beautiful pool, and that's been paid for by everyone in this community. And we should work with the school district in making that beautiful pool available to the community. And we should work really hard at that. It can be done because other places do it. I think it's way early to talk about helping the JCC with a roof. We should start with what exists. And so we can have further discussion on that tonight or any time, but I think I have to lay that out there as a marker for this important concept, which I think is moving in the wrong direction. With that, Commissioner Kramer, you are next.
Well, I guess I'd have to respond to a couple things. I've already tried with the school district and gotten nowhere.
Others can try, and I encourage them to do so.
So I've gone to the board members, they've gone to management there, and we've gotten nowhere. And we got nowhere even for this summer when we had a need for something in Ardmore. Most of the time, they have other activities scheduled there, so the hours are extraordinarily limited, and I have been unsuccessful in addressing that. So what I really wanted to say, before I had to respond to that, was that Donna was out of the room when Commissioner Sean Kramer raised the question about pushing off some parks and recreation programs. I will just say that I don't favor putting off anything that we know needs to be done because of the cost involved with it. And certainly not with the cost that's in the range of $20 million of getting financing to the tune of that amount. The only question I have is, can Donna do everything that she says she wants in the CIP? And if Donna tells me, no, this is more than I can handle, then okay, then we talk about postponing things. But if Donna thinks that she can accomplish the things that are proposed in the CIP because she seems to be Wonder Woman, I'd like to just hear from Donna directly.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. Donna, it's time for you. You've been with us. Time for you to tell us you're working on under your supervision and department is the Ardmore Avenue Community Center, perhaps the biggest project in terms of cost in the history of the township.
Yes.
Improvements to Palm. I'm going down the list. Playground replacement program, which went from every other year to every year. And then Kinwood Heritage Trail, Phase 2. Writers Ferry Road Trail, and of course, the improvements at Ashbridge House, which are significant. And I probably left some things off, so.
A few, but as far as capacity is concerned, the way the current projects are falling out, particularly like Ashbridge, Palm, the Ardmore Community Center, we are wrapping up a number of them towards the end of '25, extending into the first quarter of '26. '26, the Phase 2 Kinwood Spur connection is really to connect that tunnel that we've invested in, which will be complete hopefully within the month, via a paved path system from the Kinwood Heritage Trail down. Currently, it connects into the natural area, and it has an earthen trail to get back up to the Kinwood Heritage Trail, or it could just be a destination to be in nature in that area as well. But that project, as far as the sequence and the order of things, we are seeking grant funds for that in all ways and capacities. We still haven't done design for that. That is scheduled for this year, but probably towards the end of this year, potentially extending into '26, which would then kind of push construction out further. So I believe the way it's currently proposed is funding in '26 and then '27 as well, maybe even into '28. I actually don't recall, but it would be an extended kind of construction process. So I feel capacity-wise, having something that is overlapping and extending is doable in the long run, particularly seeking grant.
You may have answered this previously, but when do you expect that the Palm will be reopened and can be again occupied by members of our community who use it?
Sure. That should be completed by December of this year. We intend to move the current occupants of the standing Ardmore Community Center into Palm, which would be then Palm and the Ardmore Community Center sharing that new space at Palm. And at that point in January, about the end of January, the existing Ardmore Community Center will be coming down. Probably within the next month, we will start the foundations of the new community center on Ardmore will be starting to go in. So you'll start to see some footings and potential structure going up within the next month or two.
Okay, thanks for that update. Do commissioners have any questions for Donna while she's at the podium? Okay. Thank you for all your work on all these many projects, Donna. Okay, other commissioners with questions or comments on the 2026 items primarily that are in our packet, including the supplements and traffic network items. Okay. That really, we've already then begun to have or had this prioritization discussion, questions and comments from board. So I think we're wrapping up. We'll go to next steps from our township manager. I just want to, before we do that, because I think once we get to our township manager will be wrapping up for this evening. We have talked a number of times tonight about how challenging and aggressive the plan is, and I think management has responded to all of the questions. They're on top of things, and we appreciate that. One of the comments that I think is important to make is that, and you've never cited it, but I think it does make our job more difficult, is we are burdened as a municipality in Pennsylvania by multiple primes, and the requirement imposed on us to have not one prime contractor, for example, on the $20 million Ardmore Avenue Community Center that's brand new, but multiple primes. And so because of that, our costs are higher and disputes get magnified, And Jeremiah, who's in the business, is shaking his head yes, because it's a terrible system, and it makes our costs higher and the time to conclusion longer. But we are burdened by that because that's a rule imposed upon us. And then I just want to say that management works hard to bring these projects in on schedule. We know that's difficult, and most importantly, on budget. And on that, I would like to reiterate my request of management that when large projects are concluded, we get a report that says the Ardmore Avenue Community Center was budgeted $20 million, the contract was $20 million, and it came in at $20 million. Because unlike other governing bodies, you don't bring change orders to us. You just proceed with change orders. So we don't always know about them. And maybe there aren't many, and I hope there aren't. But I would request on big projects that you give us a summary of actual versus budget so that we understand where things have concluded. I expect in most cases, if not all, those numbers will be very close. But that's responsible governance for us to understand that. So before we go to Ernie to wrap up, anybody else on the board have any concluding comments? All right, Ernie, next steps.
Next steps, commissioners, is we go back to work. We will refine these numbers. We'll, as we've talked about, some projects will move forward to more design and more complete design. We'll get better numbers for our estimates for where the document we'll submit to you in about 4 months from now. We'll get a better idea of timelines. We'll get a better idea of how far we are on our big existing projects, and have a better idea of what the final year-end spend will be and what we'll project we'll open the next year with. And so we'll refine all that, and we will bring this back to you with a draft CIP. And we won't stop then. You'll give us some more input on the draft CIP. We'll go through the adoption process. We may refine the numbers even further before you get to an actual adoption, which is typically in December. So those are the next steps. We'll try and answer any of the inquiries or questions you raised here tonight in the interim, and we'll go back to work on this. Be glad to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Ernie, for your leadership. Jesse Hunting is in the room, who's Paul's right-hand man, and I know that you work very closely together to not only keep us recover from storms, but to implement our capital projects. Donna, we know, has a lot, and Jimmy McCoy, we know there's a lot in our fire service that's in our capital budget. So thank you all for your work on our behalf. And with that, 8:02, that's pretty good. I turn it back to you, Vice President Kramer.
All right. With authority.
Use that, yeah.